The Chinook helicopter bucked and swayed through the turbulent Afghan air, its rotors beating a thunderous rhythm that vibrated through Maya Reyes's bones. She sat among her gear, hands steady on her medical pack despite the violent shaking. Through the open door, she could see the Hindu Kush mountains rising like jagged teeth against a copper sky. Somewhere down there in that hostile wilderness was Forward Operating Base Phantom, her new home, her new assignment, her new test. The crew chief gave the 1-minute signal. Maya checked her rifle, her sidearm, her medical kit one final time. Everything had to be perfect. She knew what waited below, SEAL Team 7, one of the most elite units in the United States military. They hadn't asked for her. They'd requested another Navy corpsman, someone from their community, someone who understood their culture. Instead, they got her, an Army combat medic, a woman, an outsider. The Chinook's wheels hit the landing zone, kicking up a blinding cloud of dust that turned the world brown. Maya grabbed her bags and stepped out into the maelstrom, squinting against the rotor wash and the merciless Afghan sun. As the helicopter lifted away, the dust settled, and she got her first look at them. 12 men stood in a loose semicircle, arms crossed, faces hard as the mountains surrounding them. They wore a mix of multicam uniforms and civilian clothes, beards of various lengths, and expressions that ranged from skeptical to openly hostile. These were Tier 1 operators, men who'd spent years earning their tridents, who'd seen combat on every continent, who'd lost brothers and bled together in places whose names would never make the news. Commander Jake Morrison stepped forward. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with ice-blue eyes that seemed to measure and catalog everything they saw. His face was weathered, creased with lines earned through a decade of war. At 38, he was old for a SEAL team commander, but the longevity spoke volumes about his competence. "Staff Sergeant Reyes," he said, his voice neutral. "Welcome to FOB Phantom." "Thank you, sir." Maya stood at attention, meeting his eyes without challenge but without submission. Morrison turned to his team. "This is our new combat medic. She'll be attached to us for this rotation." He paused, and Maya caught the flicker of something in his expression, concern, maybe, or calculation. "I expect you to treat her as you would any member of this team." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the back, a voice just loud enough to carry, "Great, a babysitter." Someone else snorted. Another operator, a massive man with a thick black beard, shook his head slowly. Maya recognized the senior enlisted leader's rank insignia, a senior chief petty officer. He was probably the team's senior chief, the enlisted backbone of the unit. "She's just a medic," he muttered, his dark eyes moving over her dismissively. "Not even one of ours." Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her face neutral. She'd heard it all before, in basic training, in advanced individual training in her first unit. Being a woman in a combat arms role meant constantly proving yourself, over and over, to people who decided you were inadequate before you even opened your mouth. Morrison's eyes flashed with anger. "Senior Chief Martinez, you have something to say." Martinez straightened slightly but didn't back down. "Just wondering why we're getting an Army medic when we requested a corpsman, sir. No disrespect to Staff Sergeant Reyes, but she doesn't know our procedures, our culture, our—" "Your previous corpsman is in Walter Reed with his legs blown off." Morrison cut him off, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. "Staff Sergeant Reyes is what we have. She comes highly recommended, with combat experience in Kandahar and commendations for valor. That's all you need to know." The team shifted uncomfortably. Maya kept her eyes forward, refusing to show weakness, refusing to let them see how their words landed. She'd read about their last medic, Petty Officer Second Class Tim Hendricks, a legend in the SEAL community, who'd been with Team 7 for 2 deployments. He'd saved 4 operators' lives before an IED turned him into a triple amputee 3 weeks ago. Those were impossible shoes to fill. Morrison gestured toward the plywood buildings that made up the base. "Get settled. Briefing at 1800 hours. We have a patrol tomorrow. You'll get your feet wet fast." As Maya shouldered her pack and followed a junior operator toward the living quarters, she caught fragments of conversation behind her. "She looks like she's 12. Probably some diversity hire bullshit. How's she gonna carry a casualty under fire?" Maya's hands tightened on her pack straps, but she kept walking. Let them talk. Let them doubt. She'd been doubted her whole life, by drill sergeants who thought women couldn't hack infantry training, by classmates who assumed she'd gotten into the program through quotas, by patients who demanded a real doctor when she tried to treat them. What none of them knew, what nobody here could possibly know, was that Maya Reyes had grown up with a rifle in her hands on a Montana ranch, taught by a Marine Scout sniper who turned shooting into a science and an art. They didn't know that before she'd chosen to save lives. She'd been trained to take them with precision that would make most designated marksmen envious. They saw a small woman, a medic and outsider. They had no idea who she really was. Not yet. The morning sun had barely cleared the mountains when the patrol rolled out. 3 vehicles, 12 operators, and Maya squeezed into the back of an MRAP between 2 SEALs who'd made a point of not learning her name. They called her Doc, with barely concealed contempt, the same way you might refer to necessary equipment you resented carrying. The village of Marja sat 5 clicks from the base, a cluster of mud brick compounds surrounded by poppy fields that glowed pink in the early light. Intelligence suggested Taliban fighters were using it as a waypoint, moving weapons and personnel through the region. The mission was simple: show presence, gather information, win hearts and minds. Standard counterinsurgency operations. Maya had done 3 of these patrols in Kandahar. She knew how quickly routine could become chaos. Commander Morrison's voice crackled through her headset. "Dismount in 30 seconds. Stay sharp. We've got chatter on the net. Someone's watching us." The MRAP stopped in the village center, near an open marketplace where merchants sold vegetables, cloth, and cell phone cards. Women in burqas moved between stalls while children played in the dust. Old men sat drinking tea, their eyes tracking the Americans with that careful neutrality that meant nothing and everything. Maya stepped out with her medical pack, her M4 carbine held at low ready. The SEALs fanned out in a tactical formation that spoke of hundreds of hours of practice. Senior Chief Martinez took point, moving with the confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. That's when the world exploded. The IED had been buried beneath a food cart at the marketplace's edge, maybe 50 pounds of homemade explosives packed with ball bearings and scrap metal. The blast wave hit Maya like a physical punch, throwing her against the MRAP's armored side. Her ears rang, the world reduced to a high-pitched whine and slow-motion chaos. Through the smoke and dust she saw bodies. An elderly Afghan man lay crumpled against a wall, blood pumping from his neck in arterial spurts. 2 small children, a boy and a girl, maybe 6 and 8 years old, lay sprawled in the dirt, their small bodies torn by shrapnel. Screaming filled the air, a sound that transcended language. Then the shooting started. Muzzle flashes erupted from a rooftop 200 meters away. Bullets snapped through the air with that distinctive crack that meant they were close, too close. The SEALs returned fire immediately, their training overriding shock, establishing a perimeter, identifying targets. Contact right, rooftop 200 meters. RPG, RPG. Get those civilians down. Maya's training kicked in like a switch being flipped. The ringing in her ears faded to background noise as her focus narrowed to a razor's edge. She was already moving, sprinting across the kill zone toward the casualties while bullets kicked up dust around her feet. The elderly man first. He had minutes, maybe seconds. His carotid artery was severed, blood pooling beneath him in an expanding crimson lake. His eyes were wide with terror and confusion, hands clutching uselessly at his neck. Maya slid to her knees beside him, her hands already moving. No time for proper procedure. No time for sterile technique. She jammed her fingers directly into the wound, feeling the hot pulse of blood against her skin, finding the torn artery and applying direct pressure. With her other hand, she grabbed a chest seal from her kit, not its intended use, but it would work. She slapped it over the wound, creating an airtight barrier, buying precious seconds. "Stay with me," she told him in Pashto, one of the few phrases she'd learned. "Stay with me." A round cracked past her head, so close she felt the air displacement. She didn't flinch. Couldn't afford to. The man's airway was collapsing, his trachea damaged by shrapnel. He was drowning in his own blood, and standard interventions wouldn't work. Emergency cricothyrotomy. She'd done it twice in training, never in combat, never in a marketplace while people were actively trying to kill her. Maya pulled out her combat knife and a ballpoint pen from her pocket, quickly disassembling the pen to create a makeshift airway. Her hands were steady, steadier than they had any right to be, with adrenaline screaming through her system and bullets filling the air. She found the cricothyroid membrane by touch, made a horizontal incision with her blade, and inserted the pen tube directly into his trachea. The man gasped, air rushing into his lungs. His eyes focused on her, recognition of life returning, flooding his face. Covering fire, docks in the open. The volume of outgoing fire increased, the SEALs laying down suppressive fire to protect her while she worked. Maya moved to the children, her mind calculating triage priorities with cold precision. The girl had a shrapnel wound to her abdomen, serious but survivable with immediate treatment. The boy had lost part of his left leg below the knee, catastrophic bleeding that would kill him in minutes without intervention. Tourniquet first. Maya wrapped it high and tight above the boy's knee, cranking it down until the bleeding stopped. The child screamed, and that was good. Screaming meant conscious, meant fighting, meant alive. She started an IV line, pushing fluids, her hands moving with practiced efficiency even as explosions echoed from nearby compounds. The girl next. Pressure dressing, another IV, assessment for internal bleeding. Maya worked with the focused intensity of someone who'd trained for exactly this moment, who'd run these scenarios in her mind 100 times. Medevac inbound, 2 minutes. Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. Maya looked up to see him standing over her, rifle raised, placing himself between her and the incoming fire. His eyes met hers for just a second, and in that look was a question. "Can you save them?" She nodded once, yes. The Black Hawk touched down in a storm of rotor wash and dust. Maya helped load all 3 casualties, giving rapid handoff reports to the flight medic. The helicopter lifted away, and suddenly the marketplace was quiet. The Taliban fighters had melted away, as they always did. Maya stood slowly, her uniform soaked with blood, none of it hers. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline dump hitting her system. She looked down at them, surprised by the tremor. A hand landed on her shoulder. Senior Chief Martinez stood beside her, his face unreadable behind his beard and dust. "That was," he paused, searching for words, "that was good work, Doc." It wasn't friendship, it wasn't acceptance, but it was something, a crack in the wall, a grudging acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, she belonged here after all. Maya nodded, too exhausted for words. Around them, the team secured the scene, photographed evidence, coordinated with local police. The business of war continued. But something had shifted. As they loaded back into the MRAPs for the return to base, the operators who'd ignored her that morning made room, met her eyes, offered water. She was still just a medic. But she was their medic now. The rifle range sat at the far edge of Fob Phantom, a collection of makeshift barriers and sandbag berms that looked out toward the dark silhouette of the mountains. At 2300 hours, it was deserted, exactly what Maya wanted. She'd waited until the base settled into its nighttime rhythm, until the SEALs were either sleeping or occupied with their own routines, before slipping out with her M4 and a box of ammunition. The night air was cold, carrying the scent of dust and distant wood smoke. Maya set up at the 100-meter line, running through standard qualification drills to warm up. The rifle felt like an extension of her body, each movement automatic. Load, aim, breathe, squeeze. The targets fell in neat groups, center mass, exactly where they were supposed to be. But that wasn't why she was here. Maya moved back to the 300-meter line, then 500, then 800. This was beyond standard Army qualification, beyond what most infantry soldiers ever practiced. She lay prone on a shooting mat, feeling the cold ground beneath her, and let her body remember lessons learned a lifetime ago. The Montana ranch appeared in her mind like a photograph. 5,000 acres of grassland and timber, the crazy mountains rising to the east, wind always blowing. She could see her father, Sergeant First Class Raymond Reyes, USMC Scout Sniper, retired, standing beside her 13-year-old self at the shooting bench. "Breathing is everything, Mija," his voice echoed across the years. "Your heartbeat, your breath, they're the enemies of precision. Control them and you control the bullet." He'd lost her mother to cancer when Maya was 12, and for a year afterward neither of them knew how to talk to each other through the grief. So instead, they shot. Before dawn, after school weekends, the rifle range became their church, their therapy, their language. Ray Reyes didn't believe in starting small. By 14, Maya was shooting .308 Winchester at 1,000 yards. By 16, she could read wind better than most competitive shooters, calculating mirage, angle, temperature, humidity, all the invisible factors that turned shooting from a skill into a science. "Why do you teach me this?" she'd asked once, after placing 5 rounds into a 6-inch circle at 1,200 yards. Her father had looked at her with those serious brown eyes, the ones that had seen too much in Fallujah and Ramadi. "Because the world is dangerous, and you need to be dangerous too. But being dangerous isn't the same as being violent. It means having the capacity to protect, to defend, to stand when others run. You understand." She'd understood, and when it came time to choose her path, she'd chosen to save lives rather than take them. The ranch, the rifles, her father's lessons, she'd locked them all away like childhood toys she'd outgrown. Except she hadn't forgotten, couldn't forget, her body remembered. Maya settled into position at the 800-meter line, feeling the rhythm return. Breathe in, exhale halfway, hold. Heartbeat slow, muscles relaxed. Sight picture perfect. Squeeze, don't pull, never pull, just a steady increase in pressure until the rifle surprises you with its report. The shot broke clean. Through her scope, she watched the target shudder, the round punching through dead center. Again and again. Each shot a meditation, a conversation with physics and wind and distance. This was what her father had taught her, not just marksmanship, but a kind of Zen state where nothing existed except the rifle, the target, and the space between. She was so focused that she didn't hear the approach, until a voice spoke from the darkness behind her. "That's impressive shooting for a medic." Maya's heart jumped, but she kept her hands steady on the rifle. She turned her head slowly to see Commander Jake Morrison standing 10 meters back, arms crossed, his face unreadable in the shadows. "Sir," she said, starting to rise, "I'm sorry, I should have." "Stay down, finish your string." Morrison moved closer, settling into a crouch beside her. "How long have you been shooting like this?" Maya hesitated. This wasn't in her file, wasn't part of her military record. She deliberately left it out, not wanting to be seen as anything other than a medic. "Since I was 13, sir. My father was a Marine Scout sniper. He taught me on our ranch in Montana." Morrison was quiet for a long moment, watching as she sent another round downrange. "Why didn't you go into a shooting specialty? Scout sniper, SDM, anything?" "Because I wanted to save lives, not take them." Maya's voice was soft but certain. "My father saw enough death. I wanted to be different." "Noble," Morrison's tone was neutral, impossible to read. "But you kept the skills." "Old habits." Maya chambered another round. My father used to say that shooting was like meditation. It quieted the noise. After Marja yesterday, I needed quiet. She fired again. Another perfect hit. Morrison pulled out his own spotting scope, ranging the target. 800 meters, wind from the east at maybe 6 miles per hour. You're accounting for spin drift, Coriolis effect. Yes, sir. Show me 1,000. Maya moved to the final firing position, the maximum range of the makeshift range. At this distance, the targets were barely visible even through her scope, small steel plates that rang when hit. She went through her calculations automatically. Wind speed and direction, temperature, barometric pressure, the slight upward angle, Earth's rotation. Her father's voice guided her through each variable. The first shot missed by inches. Her zero was off at this distance. She adjusted, compensated, and fired again. The metallic ping of bullet on steel echoed across the range. Morrison watched through his spotting scope as she put 4 more rounds onto the plate, grouping them within a space the size of a dinner plate at a distance where most soldiers couldn't even see the target. Your father taught you well. Morrison stood, dusting off his knees. How far have you shot successfully? Maya hesitated again, knowing this answer would change something. 1,500 meters, sir. Mile and a quarter. On elk, not people. But the principles are the same. Morrison was silent, and Maya couldn't read his expression in the darkness. Finally, he spoke, his voice thoughtful. The army wasted you as a medic, Rays. You could have been one of the best. I am one of the best, sir. Maya's voice carried no arrogance, just quiet confidence, just with a different tool set. A smile ghosted across Morrison's face, the first she'd seen from him. Fair enough. Clean your weapon and get some sleep. We have another patrol at 600. Yes, sir. Morrison started to walk away, then paused. Rays, don't advertise this skill set to the team. Not yet. Wasn't planning to, sir. Good. He turned back toward the main base. But keep practicing. In this business, you never know when an unexpected skill might save lives. Maya watched him disappear into the darkness, a cold finger of premonition running down her spine. She looked down at her rifle, then out at the dark mountains beyond the wire. Somewhere out there in those hostile peaks and valleys, something was waiting. She could feel it, the same instinct that had kept her alive through 2 previous deployments. Her father used to say that fate had a way of finding shooters, of putting them in positions where their skills became necessary. You can run from it, Mija, he'd said, but the rifle always finds its way back to your hands when it matters. Maya broke down her M4, cleaning it with meticulous care, her father's lessons flowing through her hands. She'd come to Afghanistan to heal, to save, to be the person she'd chosen to become. But as she walked back to her quarters under the star-filled Afghan sky, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something that would require her to be both the healer and the shooter, the medic and the sniper, the woman she'd chosen to be and the one her father had trained her to become. The rifle would find its way back to her hands. It always did. The emergency briefing was called at 1400 hours, pulling every member of SEAL Team 7 from whatever they were doing. Maya was in the medical tent, restocking her aid bag when the call came through. Something in the radio man's voice, an urgency that cut through the usual military monotone, made her drop everything and run. The Tactical Operations Center was packed. 12 SEALs crowded around a table covered in maps, satellite imagery, and intelligence reports. The air was thick with tension, the kind that came before significant operations. Commander Morrison stood at the head of the table, his face grim, and beside him was someone Maya hadn't seen before, a man in civilian clothes with the hard eyes of a career intelligence officer. Listen up, Morrison said, waiting for the room to settle. We have a situation. He tapped a satellite photo showing a compound nestled in the mountains, about 15 clicks from their position. This is our target. Intelligence has confirmed that Hamza al-Rashid is at this location. For those who don't know, Al-Rashid is a high-value target, Taliban commander responsible for at least 40 coalition deaths, including the IED that took out a Marine convoy last month and the ambush that killed 3 of our people from Team 6. The room went silent. Everyone knew those names. The intelligence officer stepped forward, pointing to different areas of the photo. Al-Rashid is paranoid, constantly moving. We've been tracking him for 6 months, and this is the first time we've had solid intelligence on his location. But the window is narrow, 36 hours maximum. After that, he'll be gone, and we might not find him again for months. Morrison took over again. Mission is direct action, capture or kill. We infill tonight at 207-mile movement through hostile terrain to this ridgeline. He indicated a position overlooking the compound. Assault element breaches here while Overwatch provides precision fire support from elevated position. We extract with the target or his body before sunrise. It was a textbook SEAL operation, fast, violent, precise. Maya had seen the planning for missions like this before. She started calculating what medical supplies she'd need, how to stage equipment for casualties, whether they'd have medevac support or would need to self-evacuate wounded. Then Morrison said something that made the room freeze. "Tours, you'll set up Overwatch at." He stopped mid-sentence as the operations center door opened. A Navy physician walked in, his face apologetic. "Commander Morrison, I need to speak with you. It's urgent." They stepped aside, speaking in low tones. Maya watched Morrison's expression go from irritation to disbelief to barely controlled fury. When they finished, the physician left quickly, and Morrison stood silent for a long moment, his jaw working. "Tours is out," he said finally, his voice flat. "Acute appendicitis. He's being medevaced to Bagram within the hour, emergency surgery required." The impact of those words hit the room like a physical blow. Petty Officer First Class Carlos Torres was their designated marksman, a graduate of the Naval Special Warfare Scout Sniper Course, with 4 deployments and more than 60 confirmed kills. He was supposed to provide Overwatch, the precision long-range fire that would protect the assault element, eliminate sentries, and provide a crucial safety net if things went wrong. Without him, the mission was compromised. Senior Chief Martinez spoke first. "We scrub it. Without Overwatch, we're going in blind. It's suicide." "We can't scrub," Morrison shot back. "This is our only shot at Al-Rashid. He's killed too many of our people. We owe it to them." "Then we go without a sniper," another operator suggested. "Assault element moves faster, hits harder. We've done it before." Morrison shook his head. "Not on this. The compound has clear sightlines, elevated positions. Without Overwatch, we'll be exposed during the breach. Casualties are almost guaranteed." "What about borrowing someone from another team?" Martinez asked. "There's a Marine Scout sniper unit at Leatherneck. 30 clicks away, and they're committed to their own operation," the intelligence officer interrupted. "There's no one available in the time frame we need." The room erupted in frustrated conversation. Voices overlapped, suggestions flew, each one shot down by logistics, timing, or operational security. Maya stood against the wall, watching, calculating. She knew what was coming before Morrison said it. She'd seen the way he looked at her at the range, the way his mind worked through problems. Morrison held up his hand for silence. When the room quieted, he turned to look directly at Maya. "Staff Sergeant Reyes, I need to ask you a question." Every eye in the room swiveled toward her. Maya felt her heart rate kick up but kept her face neutral. "Sir." "The other night at the range, you told me you've made successful shots at 1,500 meters. How confident are you in that skill?" The room exploded. "You can't be serious. She's a medic, not a sniper. This is insane." Morrison's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I asked Reyes a question. The rest of you shut up until she answers." Maya stepped forward, her mind racing. This was the moment her father had warned her about, The moment when the past caught up with the present, when the skills she tried to leave behind demanded to be used. Sir, I'm confident in my shooting ability at that range under controlled conditions, but I've never shot in combat as a sniper. I've never taken a human life, and I've never been through formal sniper school. That's not what I asked, Morrison said quietly. I asked how confident you are in the skill. Can you make the shot when it matters? Maya thought of her father, of 1,000 mornings on the Montana ranch, of the way the rifle felt like an extension of her body. She thought of the Marines Torres was supposed to protect, of the mission that would fail without overwatch, of the Americans who would die if al-Rashid escaped. Yes, sir, she said, I can make the shot. The room erupted again. Senior Chief Martinez stepped forward, his face dark with anger. Commander, with all due respect, this is reckless. She hasn't been through the pipeline, hasn't been trained in our tactics, techniques, and procedures. She's just a medic. She's not qualified for this kind of mission. Just a medic. Morrison's voice was dangerously quiet. She saved 3 lives under fire in Marja while bullets were cracking past her head. I've read her file. She has a Bronze Star with valor from Kandahar for treating casualties in a 6-hour firefight. And I've watched her shoot. She's better at 800 meters than Torres is at 500. That's not the same as combat. I know it's not the same. Morrison's control finally cracked, his voice rising. You think I like this. You think this is my first choice. But Torres is gone, we have no other options, and this mission is too important to scrub. So unless one of you suddenly develop the ability to shoot at 1,500 meters in the last 5 minutes, Rays is what we have. The silence that followed was crushing. Maya could feel the weight of their doubt, their fear, their resentment. These men were trusting their lives to her, and she was asking them to make that leap of faith based on nothing but Morrison's word and some nighttime shooting practice. Martinez tried one more time. Sir, if she misses, if she can't perform under pressure, the entire assault element is exposed. We're talking about the lives of 7 operators. I know what we're talking about, Senior Chief. Morrison's voice was cold now, final. And I'm making the call. Rays is Overwatch. He turned to Maya, his blue eyes boring into hers. You have 4 hours to prepare. I want you to zero my personal rifle, a Barrett M82A1. You'll take position on the ridgeline at 1,400 meters from the target. Your job is to eliminate sentries on my command and provide precision fire support if the assault element gets compromised. Can you do that? 4 hours to prepare for a mission that would normally take days or weeks of planning. 4 hours to learn a weapon she'd never fired. 4 hours to become a sniper. Maya's mouth was dry, but her voice came out steady. Yes, sir, I can do that. Morrison nodded once. Good. Senior Chief, take her to the armory. The rest of you, mission brief continues in 15 minutes. Dismissed. As the room cleared, men shooting her looks that ranged from skeptical to openly hostile, Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find Martinez looking at her, his expression unreadable. I hope to God you're as good as the commander thinks you are, he said quietly. Because if you're not, some of us aren't coming home. Then he walked away, leaving Maya alone with the crushing weight of what she'd just agreed to do. The armory smelled of gun, oil, metal, and decades of war. Commander Morrison led Maya past racks of M4s, grenades, and ammunition crates to a locked safe in the back corner. He spun the combination dial with practiced precision and pulled out a long, hard case that had seen better days, scratched, dented, covered with faded stickers from a dozen deployments. This is my personal weapon, Morrison said, laying the case on the workbench. I don't let anyone else touch it, ever. He opened the case, and Maya's breath caught. The Barrett M82A1 lay nestled in foam padding like a sleeping predator. 51 inches of matte black American engineering, weighing 30 pounds fully loaded. It fired .50 BMG rounds, bullets originally designed to disable aircraft and pierce armor at extreme distances. In the hands of a skilled shooter, it could kill at distances exceeding 2 miles. 3 deployments, Morrison continued, running his hand along the barrel with something close to reverence. 42 confirmed kills. I've carried this rifle through Iraq, Syria, and 2 rotations here. It saved my life and the lives of my team more times than I can count. He looked at Maya directly. Torres has his own rifle, but it's already packed for medevac. This is all we have. Can you handle it? Maya lifted the Barrett from its case. The weight was substantial but manageable. She worked the bolt, checked the chamber, examined the scope. A Nightforce ATACR 735X56 with custom turrets marked in Morrison's handwriting. Everything about the weapon spoke of care, of respect, of a tool that had been maintained to perfection. The recoil is significant, Morrison warned. More than anything you've shot, and the ballistics are different from standard rifles. The bullet drops like a rock after 1,500 meters. I understand, sir. Maya's hands moved over the weapon with growing confidence. The principles were the same, just scaled up. I'll need time to zero it, learn its tendencies. Morrison checked his watch. You have 3 hours before we load out. That's all I can give you. 20 minutes later, Maya was prone on the rifle range, the Barrett's bipod deployed, the massive rifle settled against her shoulder. Senior Chief Martinez stood beside her with a spotting scope, his presence a mix of supervision and skepticism. Behind them, half the team had gathered to watch, some hoping she'd succeed, others waiting for her to fail. Morrison knelt beside her. The zero is set for my shooting style, my body mechanics. You'll need to adjust. Start at 800 meters, work your way out. Maya chambered a round. The .50 BMG cartridge was as long as her hand, topped with a 750-grain projectile that would carry more kinetic energy than a car crash. She settled into her shooting position, feeling the cold ground beneath her, the weight of the rifle, the tension in the air. Her father's voice came back to her. A new rifle is like a new dance partner. You need to learn how they move, how they respond, what they need from you. She focused on the target 800 meters downrange, a steel plate the size of a torso. Breathe in, exhale halfway, find the natural respiratory pause. Her heartbeat slowed to a steady rhythm. Sight picture aligned. Gentle pressure on the trigger, increasing steadily until... The Barrett roared like thunder, the recoil slamming into her shoulder with brutal force. The muzzle brake redirected the blast sideways, kicking up a cloud of dust. Through the scope, Maya watched the target ring, the round punching through dead center. Hit, Martinez called out, surprise clear in his voice. Center mass. Maya worked the bolt, the spent brass casing ejecting with a metallic clink. The smell of burnt powder filled her nostrils, sharper, more acrid than smaller calibers. She adjusted her hold slightly, compensating for the recoil pattern, and fired again. Another hit, then another. 5 rounds, 5 hits, grouping within a space the size of a basketball. Move to 1,000, Morrison ordered. The team behind them had gone quiet, watching now with growing attention. Maya adjusted her elevation, calculated the wind drift, currently 6 miles per hour from the east, and engaged the target. The Barrett bucked, roared, and the distant steel sang its metallic song. Dead center, Martinez said, his tone shifting from skeptical to professional. Again. Maya fired 4 more rounds, each one finding the mark. The rifle was speaking to her now, telling her its secrets, the way it settled after recoil, the precise break point of the trigger, the slight cant that Morrison built into his shooting position. 1,200 meters, Morrison said quietly. This was beyond what most designated marksmen practiced, into the realm of specialized snipers. Maya moved back to the final firing position, her mind automatically running calculations. At this distance, she had to account for the Coriolis effect, the rotation of the Earth actually affecting the bullet's path. Spin drift became significant. Temperature, humidity, even the slight upward angle of the shot, everything mattered. She dialed in the adjustments, estimating Morrison's custom turret markings. The first shot missed by a foot. Her zero was off for this distance and her different shooting mechanics. "Miss Right Edge," Martinez called. Maya adjusted, compensating for the difference between Morrison's body and hers, between his muscle memory and her own. She fired again. "Hit upper center." She chambered another round, refined her adjustment and squeezed. Through the scope she watched the bullet's impact, dead center. "Hit perfect." 3 more rounds followed, each one hammering home within inches of the others. At 1,200 meters, 3/4 of a mile, Maya was grouping shots within a space smaller than a human head. Behind her someone whispered, "Holy shit." Morrison stood, pulling out his spotting scope. "Final test, 1,400 meters. That's your shooting position tomorrow night, the exact distance from the ridgeline to the compound. If you can make this shot consistently, you're good to go." Maya moved to the absolute limit of the range. At this distance, the target was barely visible even through the powerful scope, a small steel plate that seemed to waver in the heat mirage rising from the desert floor. This was the shot that would matter tomorrow night. This was the distance from which she'd protect the assault element, from which she'd have to eliminate sentries before they could raise an alarm. She ran through her mental checklist one final time. Wind, 6 miles per hour shifting slightly. Temperature 92 degrees. Altitude 2,400 feet above sea level. Barometric pressure high, target at slight downward angle. Distance 1,400 meters, requiring roughly 380 inches of drop, over 30 feet. The bullet would be in flight for nearly 2 seconds, an eternity in ballistic terms. Maya let everything else fall away. The watching team, Morrison's expectations, Senior Chief Martinez's skepticism, her own doubts, all of it dissolved into background noise. There was only the rifle, the target, and the space between. She fired. 2 seconds of silence, then the distant, unmistakable ping of metal on metal. "Hit," Martinez said, his voice carrying something like awe. "Dead center." Maya chambered another round, becoming one with the rhythm of the Barrett. Fire, absorb recoil, work bolt, settle, breathe, fire. 5 rounds total, and Martinez called each one. Hit, 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 hit. When she stood, her shoulder was bruised from the recoil, her ears ringing despite the hearing protection. Morrison took the rifle from her hands, examining it with the care of a father checking on his child. "That'll do," he said simply. Then louder, addressing the team, "Any questions about Reyes' ability to handle Overwatch?" The silence spoke volumes. Even the most skeptical operators, the ones who'd muttered about her being just a medic, stood quiet, faces thoughtful. Senior Chief Martinez stepped forward. He didn't apologize, didn't offer empty praise. Instead, he extended his hand. "You can shoot, Reyes. Now let's hope you can do it when people are shooting back." Maya shook his hand, feeling the calluses of a decade of warfare. "I won't let you down, Senior Chief." "See that you don't." He glanced at Morrison. "Sir, I recommend we run her through mission protocols, communication procedures, fire commands, emergency contingencies. She needs to know our language." Morrison nodded. "Agreed. Reyes, you're with Senior Chief for the next 2 hours. Learn everything he teaches you. Your life and theirs depends on it." As the team dispersed to continue mission prep, Maya felt the weight of what she'd agreed to settling onto her shoulders. In less than 12 hours, she'd be lying on a ridge in hostile territory, looking through this scope at real human beings, waiting for the command to kill. She'd spent her entire adult life learning to save lives. Tomorrow night, she'd have to take them. The rifle had found its way back to her hands, just as her father predicted. And there was no turning back now. The Black Hawk lifted off at exactly 200 hours, rotors beating against the night sky like a mechanical heartbeat. Maya sat pressed between her gear and the bulkhead, the Barrett in its case secured beside her, 50 pounds of additional equipment strapped to her body. Around her, the SEALs sat in that peculiar stillness of experienced operators before combat, not sleeping, not quite awake, existing in some mental space where they ran through rehearsals and contingencies. Commander Morrison sat across from her, his face painted with camouflage, night vision goggles pushed up on his helmet. He caught her eye and gave a slight nod. Confidence or reassurance, Maya couldn't tell, maybe both. The helicopter flew low and fast, using terrain to mask its approach. Through the open door, Maya could see the Afghan landscape sliding past beneath them. Dark valleys, darker mountains, a moonless sky thick with stars that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Senior Chief Martinez leaned close to her ear, shouting over the rotor noise. "Remember your sectors. You own everything from the compound north. Anything moves in your field of view, you call it. We clear." Maya nodded, her throat too tight for words. They'd spent 2 hours drilling her on radio procedures, call signs, fire commands. She knew the plan backwards and forwards. Helicopter insertion 3 clicks from the target, 7-mile foot movement through hostile terrain. Split at the final objective with her moving to the overwatch position, while the assault element staged for the breach. Simple on paper, potentially lethal in execution. The crew chief gave the 2-minute warning. The SEALs stirred, checking weapons, tightening straps, that final ritual before stepping into danger. Maya ran through her mental checklist. Barrett 0 confirmed. Ammunition, 10 rounds, cleaning kit, spotting scope, range finder, communication equipment, medical supplies for self-aid. Everything she needed to keep 7 men alive from 1,400 meters away. The helicopter flared and they were on the ground, moving into the darkness before the skids even fully settled. Maya followed Martinez, her boots hitting Afghan soil, the Barrett's case heavy on her back. The Black Hawk lifted away immediately, and suddenly they were alone in enemy territory with 7 miles of mountains between them and the target. Morrison took point, using night vision to navigate the treacherous terrain. They moved in tactical file, spacing between operators, weapons ready but pointing safe. The march was brutal, steep inclines, loose scree that threatened to slide with every step, thorny brush that caught at equipment and skin. Maya's legs burned within the first mile, her shoulders aching from the weight of gear and weapon, but she kept pace, refusing to be the weak link. They moved through a dried riverbed, past abandoned compounds that might have hidden enemy fighters, across open ground where they were vulnerable to observation. Every step was calculated, every pause deliberate. Morrison navigated using GPS and landmark recognition, his experience evident in how he chose routes that offered concealment and cover. At the 4-mile mark, they took a brief tactical pause in a cluster of boulders. Maya checked her watch, 3:40 hours. They were making good time, still on schedule. Martinez moved down the line, checking each operator, stopping at Maya. "You good?" he whispered. "Good," she confirmed, though her heart was hammering and her hands were slick with sweat inside her gloves. "Once we split, you're on your own until exfil. Stay alert, stay hidden, and trust your training." His eyes were hard to read in the darkness. "And Rays, don't hesitate. When the time comes, take the shot. Hesitation kills people." "I won't hesitate, Senior Chief." "Better not. I got kids back home. I plan to see them again." They moved out, climbing higher into the mountains. The air grew thinner, colder. Maya's breath came in visible puffs despite the physical exertion. Her father's voice came to her unbidden. "Mountains are honest, Mija. They don't care about your rank or your feelings. They only care if you're strong enough." At 4:45 hours, they reached the split point, a rocky saddle where the ridgeline forked. Morrison gathered the team, speaking in whispers barely audible over the wind. "Assault element holds here while Rays gets into position. Radio check every 15 minutes. We breach at 600 first light. Questions?" Silence. These men had done this before, knew the drill, trusted the plan even if they didn't fully trust her. Morrison turned to Maya. Your position is 800 meters northeast, elevation 200 feet above us. You'll have direct line of sight to the compound. Get set up, confirm your range, and wait for my command. Do not, I repeat, do not, engage unless I give the order or the assault element is compromised. Clear. Clear, sir. Then move out and raise. Morrison's hand landed briefly on her shoulder. You've got this. Maya nodded, not trusting her voice, and slipped away into the darkness. The climb to her position was solitary, nerve-wracking. Every sound seemed amplified, the scrape of her boots on rock, the rustle of gear, her own breathing. She was alone now, separated from the team, carrying a rifle that would announce her presence with thunder the moment she fired. The overwatch position was exactly where the satellite imagery indicated, a natural shelf of rock overlooking the valley, with clear sightlines to the target compound below and good cover from observation. Maya set up methodically, despite her racing heart, following the procedures Martinez had drilled into her. Barrett assembled and positioned, bipod deployed on stable rock, spotting scope set up for wind reading, range finder confirming distances, ammunition arranged within easy reach, sector sketch drawn in her notebook, marking key terrain features and potential threats. Through her scope, the compound materialized in shades of green through the night vision. A cluster of mud brick buildings arranged around a central courtyard, exactly as the intelligence photos had shown. She counted 4 guards, 2 at the main gate, 1 on the north wall, 1 patrolling the courtyard. All armed with AK-47s, moving with the casual alertness of men who'd been doing this for hours. Maya ranged each one, 1,412 meters to the main gate, 1,387 to the north wall, 1,425 to the courtyard. She calculated her holds, marked them mentally, then settled in to wait. 15 hours. The assault element would be moving into their final positions now, creeping through the darkness toward the compound's blind side. 30 hours. The eastern sky began to lighten, not quite dawn but no longer full darkness, the dangerous time when vision became unreliable. 45 hours. Maya's radio crackled with Morrison's whisper, "Overwatch status check." "Overwatch set, 4 enemy personnel visible, ranges confirmed," Maya reported, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Copy, stand by for." Morrison's transmission cut off. Through her scope, Maya saw why. Movement on the path below the compound. A patrol, 6 men, heavily armed, walking directly toward where the assault element was staged. Her blood turned to ice. The Taliban patrol was less than 200 meters from discovering Morrison and his team. If they got any closer, the entire mission would collapse into a firefight with the assault element trapped in the open. Morrison's voice came through her earpiece, barely audible, carrying an edge of tension she'd never heard from him. "Overwatch, we have enemy patrol, 6 men approaching from southwest. We're compromised if they advance another 100 meters. Authorization to engage is yours. Take the shot if you have it." Maya's hands moved automatically, transitioning from night vision to the thermal scope, acquiring the patrol through the pre-dawn gloom. 6 Taliban fighters, weapons ready, moving in tactical formation. They weren't random villagers. These were experienced fighters, alert and dangerous. The lead man was 1,547 meters away, nearly a mile, in poor light, with a weapon she'd fired for the first time just hours ago. Her father's voice, "When the moment comes, don't think. Thinking makes you slow. Trust your training, trust the rifle, trust yourself." Maya's breathing slowed. Her heartbeat dropped to 40 beats per minute. The world narrowed to the scope, the target, and the terrible mathematics of death. Wind, 8 miles per hour left to right, gusting to 10. Temperature, 42 degrees and dropping. Barometric pressure, high. Distance, 1,547 meters. The bullet would drop over 35 feet, drift 6 feet left in the crosswind, and take 2.3 seconds to reach the target. She placed the crosshairs 3 feet ahead of the lead fighter, elevated for the drop, and began her squeeze. The Barrett roared, shattering the mountain silence. Through the scope, Maya watched the lead Taliban fighter crumple, dead before he hit the ground. The others froze in confusion, looking toward the compound instead of the ridge, their minds not processing that death had come from nearly a mile away. Maya chambered another round, the bolt action smooth despite her shaking hands. She just killed a man. The reality tried to crash through her focus, but she pushed it away. Later. She'd deal with it later. Second target acquired. The math was the same, but they were moving now, scattering. She led the runner, adjusted for his speed, and fired. The Barrett's recoil slammed into her shoulder. Through the scope, target down. The remaining 4 fighters were panicking, firing wildly in the wrong direction, shouting into radios. They still hadn't figured out where the shots were coming from. Maya found her third target, a man raising his radio to his mouth, about to call for reinforcements. Breathes, acquire, calculate, fire. The radio fell from dead hands. The 3 survivors broke and ran, disappearing into the rocks and brush with the speed of terrified men. They were no longer a threat, no longer advancing toward the assault element. Maya's radio crackled. Overwatch 3 enemy KIA, remaining targets retreating. Assault element is clear. Outstanding shooting. Stand by for breach. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline flooding her system. She'd just killed 3 human beings from nearly a mile away. She'd taken lives instead of saving them. But Morrison and his team were alive. The mission was still on. Copy, Maya managed, standing by. Through her scope, she watched the assault element emerge from concealment, moving fast toward the compound. The guards at the gate were alert now, confused by the distant gunfire but not yet understanding the danger. Morrison's voice, Overwatch, clear the gate, execute. No hesitation this time. Maya had crossed the line, 2 guards, 1,400 meters. She took them both in rapid succession, the Barrett speaking its thunder twice more. The assault element hit the compound like a hammer, breaching the door with explosive charges, flowing through with practiced violence. Maya watched through her scope, providing security, her finger on the trigger, ready to engage any threat that appeared. 6 minutes, that's all it took. Morrison's voice came through. Jackpot, we have the package, exfil in 2 minutes. They emerged with a hooded prisoner, Hamza al-Rashid, the man responsible for dozens of American deaths, now captured alive. And not a single SEAL had been wounded. Maya's first mission as a sniper was complete. The exfiltration was supposed to be clean, fast movement back to the landing zone, helicopter extraction, mission complete. But in Afghanistan, nothing ever went according to plan. They'd made it 3 miles from the compound when Morrison's voice crackled urgently through Maya's earpiece. All elements, we have multiple enemy contacts converging on our position. QRF is inbound. Estimate 20+ Taliban fighters moving to intercept. Overwatch, what do you see? Maya swept her scope across the terrain below, her elevated position providing a god's eye view of the valley. Her blood ran cold. 3 groups of fighters were moving through the mountain passes, armed with AKs and RPGs, clearly coordinating their approach to cut off the SEAL team's escape route. The Taliban had called in reinforcements, and they were moving fast. Overwatch confirms 3 enemy elements, Maya reported, forcing calm into her voice. North Group, 8 fighters at 1,200 meters. East Group, 6 fighters at 1,600 meters. South Group, 7 fighters at 1,800 meters. They're trying to box you in. Morrison's response was immediate. We can't outrun them with the package. We need to break contact. Overwatch, can you slow them down? Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't 3 careful shots in pre-dawn light. This was sustained precision fire against multiple moving targets at extreme range while her team fought for their lives below. This was the moment that would define whether she was truly a sniper or just someone who could shoot well at a range. "Affirm," she said, engaging Northern Group first. The North Group was closest to the assault element, the most immediate threat. 8 men moving in tactical bounds through rocky terrain, using cover well, weapons ready. They knew what they were doing. These weren't untrained militia but experienced fighters. Maya settled behind the Barrett, her body finding that zone where fear transformed into focused calm. Her father had taught her this. Fear is fuel, Mija. Use it to sharpen your senses, not paralyze your mind. First target, the leader, identifiable by how the others oriented on him. Range, 1,236 meters. Wind had picked up, now gusting to 12 miles per hour, swirling in the mountain passes. Temperature rising with the sun, affecting air density. She had to adjust on the fly, trusting instinct as much as calculation. The Barrett thundered. Through the scope, she watched the leader fall. The group scattered, diving for cover, but they were still pushing forward. She chambered another round, found a fighter exposed as he ran between rocks, led him by 4 feet and fired. Another down. The group was hesitating now, confused about where the fire was coming from. "North Group is combat ineffective," Maya reported, already transitioning to the eastern threat. "Engaging East Group." This group was farther out, 600 meters, the limit of what she'd practiced. 6 fighters, but they'd seen their comrades fall and were moving more cautiously, using better cover. Maya would have to take riskier shots, catch them in moments of exposure. She watched through her scope, patient despite the urgency, waiting for opportunity. There, one fighter breaking cover to move forward. She led him, squeezed, and the Barrett's recoil slammed into her bruised shoulder. The man went down hard. Return fire started coming her way, not accurate at this distance, but getting closer. They'd spotted her muzzle flash. Rounds cracked overhead, ricocheting off rocks near her position. Maya ignored them, operating in that strange space where incoming fire became just another variable to account for. Another fighter exposed. Fire. Another down. The Eastern Group was breaking, falling back, their advance halted. "East Group retreating," she reported. Her shoulder was screaming from the Barrett's punishing recoil, her fingers starting to fumble the bolt from fatigue. But she wasn't done. Engaging South Group. The southern element was the most distant, 800 meters, well beyond what most snipers would attempt with any expectation of success. 7 fighters, and they'd learned from watching their comrades die. They were using maximum cover, moving in short bursts, making themselves difficult targets. Maya's ammunition was running low. She had 4 rounds left, 7 targets at nearly 2 kilometers. The math didn't work unless she made every shot count. Through her scope, she watched the Southern Group's movement pattern, looking for predictability. There, they were bounding by terrain features, exposed for 3-second intervals. She'd have to time it perfectly, engage during that brief window of vulnerability. She waited, breathing slow, finger on the trigger. A fighter broke cover, sprinting for the next position. Maya fired, the bullet taking over 2 seconds to arrive, and the man stumbled mid-stride. 3 rounds left, 6 targets remaining. They were getting closer to the assault element, now less than 400 meters from Morrison's position. "Overwatch, they're pressing hard on our 6, Morrison's voice carried new urgency. "We need immediate suppression." Maya fired again, catching a fighter as he tried to provide covering fire for his team. The Southern Group was fully committed now, pushing forward despite the casualties, trying to close distance before this invisible sniper could kill them all. 2 rounds left, 5 fighters still coming. Her hands were shaking from fatigue and adrenaline. The Barrett felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Every trigger pull sent shockwaves of pain through her bruised shoulder. But she couldn't stop, couldn't miss, couldn't fail. She found her next target, a fighter with an RPG, the greatest threat to the SEAL team. At 1,650 meters in moving air with exhaustion making her hands unsteady, it was an impossible shot. She took it anyway. The Barrett roared. The RPG gunner fell, his weapon clattering unfired to the rocks. 1 round left, 4 fighters remaining. But something had changed in the Southern group's behavior. They'd stopped advancing, stopped shooting. 4 men against an invisible enemy who just killed 3 of their comrades from impossible distance. They'd lost their will to fight. Maya watched through her scope as they retreated, dragging their wounded, disappearing into the mountains. The battlefield fell quiet except for the distant sound of helicopter rotors. All threats neutralized, Maya reported, her voice hoarse. Assault element is clear. Morrison's response carried something she'd never heard from him before, raw emotion breaking through his tactical composure. Outstanding work, Overwatch. You just saved 7 lives. The extraction bird is inbound, 2 minutes. Maya sagged behind the Barrett, her entire body trembling with exhaustion and reaction. She just conducted sustained precision fire at extreme range under combat conditions, eliminating multiple threats across nearly 2 kilometers of mountainous terrain. She'd done what even experienced snipers would consider exceptional. But more than that, she'd kept her promise. Not 1 SEAL had been wounded. Not 1 American would go home in a flag-draped coffin because she'd hesitated or missed or failed. She began breaking down her position, packing the Barrett with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The helicopter appeared over the ridgeline, her ride home. But as she prepared to move, Maya looked through her spotting scope one last time at the valley below. Bodies lay scattered across the rocks. Men who'd woken up that morning not knowing they'd die before noon. Men who were someone's son, brother, father. Men she'd killed from so far away they'd never even seen her face. The reality crashed through her adrenaline-fueled focus. She'd taken lives today. 6 confirmed kills, maybe more. She was a healer who'd become a killer, a medic who'd picked up a sniper rifle and used it with devastating effect. Her father's words came back to her. Being dangerous isn't the same as being violent. It means having the capacity to protect. That's what she'd done today. Protected. 7 SEALs were alive because she'd been dangerous when it mattered. The mission had succeeded because she'd made impossible shots under impossible conditions. Maya stood, shouldering the Barrett's case, and began her descent to the landing zone. Her legs were unsteady, her shoulder was bruised purple, her hands were blistered from working the Barrett's bolt. But she was whole, alive, and victorious. She reached the LZ as the helicopter touched down. The assault element was already aboard, Hamza al-Rashid secured and hooded. Morrison stood at the door, hand extended to pull her up. As she gripped his hand and climbed aboard, Maya saw something in his eyes. Respect, yes, but more than that. Recognition. She wasn't just a medic anymore. She wasn't an outsider trying to prove herself. She was a warrior who'd stood alone on a mountain and held off an enemy force to protect her brothers. Senior Chief Martinez met her eyes across the helicopter's interior. Slowly, deliberately, he placed his fist over his heart in the SEAL salute, a gesture of respect reserved for those who'd earned it through blood and courage. Around the cabin, one by one, the other operators did the same. The helicopter lifted away from the mountains, carrying them toward safety, carrying Maya toward a future she'd never imagined. She'd gone into those mountains as a combat medic with a hidden talent. She was coming home as something else entirely. A legend in the making. The briefing room at Forward Operating Base Phantom felt different when Maya walked in 12 hours after the mission. Word had already spread, not through official channels, but through that mysterious network of military gossip that moved faster than any radio transmission. The combat medic who'd picked up a Barrett and made impossible shots. The woman they'd mocked who'd saved an entire assault element from nearly a mile away. Commander Morrison stood at the front of the room, and this time, every seat was filled. Not just SEAL Team 7, but operators from other units, support staff, even the base commander. Everyone wanted to hear the official debrief of the mission that had captured Hamza al-Rashid without a single American casualty. "At ease," Morrison said as Maya entered. He gestured to the chair beside him. "Staff Sergeant Ray's front and center." Maya moved through the crowd, feeling dozens of eyes tracking her movement. She'd showered, changed uniforms, treated her bruised shoulder, but she still felt the Barrett's recoil in her bones, still saw the targets falling through her scope every time she closed her eyes. Morrison pulled up satellite imagery on the screen. "For the record, this is the mission summary. SEAL Team 7 conducted a direct action raid on a high-value target compound at grid coordinates." He ran through the tactical details with professional precision, but when he reached the Overwatch element, his tone changed. "Staff Sergeant Maya Ray's, call sign Overwatch, established position at 1,400 meters from the primary objective. During the approach phase, she engaged and eliminated 3 enemy combatants at 1,547 meters who threatened to compromise the assault element. During the breach phase, she eliminated 2 sentries at the primary gate. During exfiltration, she engaged 3 separate enemy elements totaling 21 fighters, eliminating 6 confirmed, wounding several others and breaking their attack." The room was absolutely silent. Morrison turned to face Maya directly. 6 confirmed kills at extreme range under combat conditions, with a weapon she'd fired for the first time less than 24 hours before the mission. 0 friendly casualties. Mission success. Complete tactical dominance. He paused. "Staff Sergeant Ray's, the United States Navy doesn't give medals to Army personnel lightly, but I'm personally recommending you for the Silver Star." The room erupted, not with skepticism or doubt this time, but with the kind of acknowledgement warriors reserved for their own. Maya felt her throat tighten, unprepared for the emotion flooding through her. Senior Chief Martinez stood up. The room quieted immediately. When the senior chief spoke, people listened. He walked to where Maya sat, and for a moment she saw the struggle in his face, the difficulty of what he was about to say. "I was wrong," Martinez said simply. "When you arrived, I saw a young woman, a medic, someone who didn't belong with operators. I made assumptions based on who I thought you were instead of waiting to see who you actually are." He extended his hand. "You're not just a medic. You're not just a shooter. You're one of the best damn warriors I've served with in 15 years. I'm sorry for doubting you, and I'm honored to serve alongside you." Maya shook his hand, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Martinez wasn't done. He turned to address the room. "Anyone else here need to apologize to Ray's for being a judgmental asshole?" He looked pointedly at several team members. "Because I know I wasn't the only one." One by one, operators stood. Some approached to shake her hand, others simply nodded with the understanding that words weren't necessary. The petty officer who'd called her a babysitter that first day stood in front of her, his face serious. "I said you were just a medic like it was an insult," he said quietly. "Truth is, medics are the bravest people out here. They run toward danger to save us, and you did that in Marja. Then you picked up a rifle and protected us in a completely different way. That takes someone special. I was wrong about you." Maya found her voice. "You weren't entirely wrong. I am just a medic. That's what I chose to be, what I trained to be. The shooting," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "That's something I inherited, something from my past, but saving lives is who I am. This mission doesn't change that." Morrison stepped forward again. "That's what makes you exceptional, Ray's. You never wanted to be a sniper. You picked up that rifle because your team needed you to, because the mission required it. That's the definition of a warrior, someone who does what's necessary, regardless of personal preference." The debrief continued for another hour. Tactical lessons learned, intelligence gathered from the captured target, operational improvements for future missions. But Maya's mind kept drifting to the mountain, to the men she'd killed, to the weight of having crossed that line from healer to killer. After the official debrief ended, Morrison asked her to stay behind. When the room cleared, he pulled out a small wooden case and set it on the table between them. "Open it," he said. Inside, nestled in felt, were 5 spent .50 caliber casings, brass polished to a mirror shine. Each one was engraved with coordinates, date, and a single word: Guardian. "These are from your shots that saved the assault element during exfil," Morrison explained. "I recovered them from your position. The coordinates mark where you were. The date marks when you became more than just a medic, more than just a shooter. You became a guardian, someone who stands between their brothers and death, regardless of the tool required." Maya picked up one of the casings, feeling its weight, seeing her reflection distorted in the polished brass. "I'm not sure I'm ready for what this means, sir. I became a medic to save lives, not take them." "And you still save lives. You saved 7 yesterday, mine included." Morrison's voice was gentle but firm. "But you also learned something important. Sometimes saving lives requires taking them. That's the hardest lesson of war, the one that never gets easier. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you can live with both parts of who you are." Maya thought of her father, of the Montana ranch, of the morning she decided to pursue medicine instead of following him into the military as a shooter. She thought she was leaving that part of herself behind. Instead, she'd just been waiting for the moment when it would be needed. "I can live with it," she said quietly, "because the alternative was watching good people die when I had the skills to prevent it." "That's the right answer," Morrison stood. "You're flying home in 3 days, your rotation is up. But before you go, the team wants to do something. Meet us at the range at 1800 hours. That evening, Maya walked to the rifle range to find the entire team waiting. In front of them, set up on a wooden stand, was Morrison's Barrett M82A1, the rifle that had become an extension of her will, the tool through which she'd protected her brothers. Morrison stepped forward with a plaque. "We took a vote. This rifle has been mine for 3 deployments, but it found its true purpose in your hands. We want you to have it." Maya's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't. This is your personal weapon, It's yours now." Morrison's tone left no room for argument. "You've earned it. More than that, you've honored it. Take it home. Keep practicing. And if you ever decide you want to come back to the teams as a shooter or a medic or both, you have a standing invitation." The team gathered around as Maya accepted the rifle, the weight of it familiar now, no longer foreign. Senior Chief Martinez produced a unit patch, the seal trident with Team 7's designation, and held it out. "You're not officially one of us," he said, "but you've bled with us, fought with us, and proven yourself in ways that matter more than any qualification course. Honorary Team 7, wear it if you want." Maya took the patch, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. These men who doubted her, dismissed her, called her just a medic, were offering her the highest honor they could give: acceptance, brotherhood, a place among warriors. 3 days later, Maya boarded a C-130 bound for Bagram, then Germany, then finally home to the United States. The Barrett traveled with her in its case, along with the polished brass casings and memories that would never fade. She returned to her duty station at Fort Carson, back to the world of medical training, emergency rooms, and saving lives. The Army promoted her to Sergeant First Class. Her Silver Star recommendation was approved, the citation reading in part, "For gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States." But Maya didn't display the medal prominently. Instead, she kept it in a drawer with her father's old shooting medals, artifacts of a part of herself she tried to leave behind but had ultimately had to embrace. She continued practicing with the Barrett, spending weekends at long-range shooting courses, maintaining the skills that had saved 7 lives on an Afghan mountain. Not because she wanted to kill again, but because she'd learned that being prepared to do violence on behalf of others was sometimes the highest form of service. Word of her story spread through the special operations community, the combat medic who became a legendary sniper for a single mission. She received offers to attend sniper school, to transfer to special operations units, to become a full-time precision marksman. Maya declined them all. She was a medic. That was her calling, her purpose, her identity. The shooting was a tool she could use when necessary, but healing was who she was. Years later, when she finally retired from the Army, Maya returned to Montana. She opened a rural medical clinic, serving ranchers and farmers who couldn't easily access health care. On her wall, alongside her medical degree and certifications, hung a single photograph. SEAL Team 7 on that Afghan base, with her standing among them, Morrison's hand on her shoulder. She never forgot that she was just a medic. But now everyone who saw that photo knew the truth, that just a medic could mean someone who saved lives with sutures and medicine, or someone who protected lives with a Barrett .50 cal from nearly a mile away. She was both. She was neither. She was exactly who she'd always been, a guardian who chose the right tool for the moment, whether that tool was a scalpel or a scope. And she'd never been just anything. She was Maya Reyes, combat medic, precision marksman, healer, warrior, protector. Exactly who the moment required her to be. The end.